The candles in the Tower of the Hand had guttered low by the hour Lord Peter Baelish let himself in, unannounced, soft-souled, silent as a rumor. Lord Eddard Stark sat beside King Robert's heavy oaken bed, the sour wine-sweet odor of death thick around him. The mountain of a man who had once best-rode tourneys and taverns was now wasted and lolling in sweat-soaked linen. Robert's every ragged breath rattled like a loose shield upon a winter gate. In the corridor beyond, Ser Barristan Selmy stood rigid in white enamel armor, a statue of honor left to guard a dying liege who no longer knew him. Littlefinger paused in the doorway, fingers steepled, composing his smile. The Wolf Lord's eyes, red-rimmed and weary, flicked up. "Must you intrude now, Peter?" Ned Stark asked, voice hoarse from unspent grief. "Let a dying man see the night out in peace." "A deathbed is never peaceful, my lord," Peter murmured, letting the door click softly behind him. "It is a battlefield with no banners, only regrets for spears. His Grace has told his last tale, sung his last bawdy hymn. Now the realm must speak in his place. I've come to ease the words upon parchment." He angled his head, letting chestnut hair fall artlessly across his brow. "You have the king's last directive, do you not?" Eddard's weathered hand rested on a roll of vellum weighted by a bronze candlestick. The flame bent and hissed, casting wavering shadows that made the Wolf Lord appear half-carved from ancient weirwood. "I," Ned admitted. "Robert named me protector of the realm until his heir comes of age." Peter's lips parted in a sigh that sounded almost fond. "Your honor remains adamant as northern granite." He moved closer, each footstep barely stirring dust. "May I read?" He did not wait for leave. Fingers like pale spiders danced. The wax seal cracked. His eyes skimmed the lines he had rehearsed within his mind for months. Though he did not smile, his pulse skipped like a lute string plucked to perfect pitch. Robert Baratheon had scrawled Joffrey's name in his broad, swaggering hand, and Ned, in a stroke of austere defiance, had crossed through it, replacing the bastard prince with rightful heir. The king's final will named no child, and named honor. That would not stand. "How strange," Peter whispered, and his voice carried like a silk noose tightening. Robert's quill faltered when it mattered most. "Without the boy's name, this parchment is indeterminate." He let the vellum roll shut. Light bled across the oily wax. "The city will wake to chaos. Lannisters at the gate, Tywin racing toward the capital. And honor, alas, does not command swords quickly." Ned rose, jaw set. "Do you counsel me to set aside Robert's wishes?" "I counsel prudence." Peter's green-gray eyes shimmered with candle flame. "Let the city see a firm hand the instant Robert breathes his last. A regent accepted by all factions. No time for rival claims. Crown the boy at dawn, proclaim him king, and name a regent who can soothe Lord Tywin, calm Queen Cersei, and keep the coffers flush. Someone familiar with numbers." "Yourself, you mean?" Littlefinger dipped in a modest bow. "Merely a steward until the storm passes. When the proper heir appears, the realm may hand him a kingdom intact rather than a charred ruin." Outside the narrow arrow slit, bells began their mournful toll. Ned's gray eyes closed. "The king is gone." A single tear slipped down his cheek, though his voice did not waver. "Leave me, Peter. I will honor Robert as I must." Peter inclined his head, though inside he tasted triumph like summer wine. "As you must," he echoed. "But remember, honor unbending snaps. The realm needs pliancy." He glided out, closing the door upon the dying echoes of iron bells. Dawn found the Red Keep roiling. Courtiers pressed into serpentine corridors, tongues buzzing with half-shaped fears. Small folk in Flea Bottom woke to rumors that the king had died in his sleep, slain by a boar, poisoned by his queen, throttled by northern hands. It mattered little. The sun climbed, red as a blood-slick coin, and Peter Baelish set each rumor in motion with the flick of a finger, guiding panic to precise coordinates. In the small council chamber, Grand Maester Pycelle droned a prayer for the departed while wiping rheumy eyes. Varys fluttered a handkerchief but watched Peter from beneath powdered lids. Lord Renly sat apart, sullen, fingering a golden rose pin. Only Cersei remained absent, though her crimson and gold banners already blanketed the courtyard. Peter placed Robert's will upon the table. His grace has passed. We must declare a regency forthwith. He projected mournful solemnity tinged with urgency, the voice of a man burdened by duty. Lord Eddard Stark, named Protector, requires time to marshal northern levies. In the interim, the city must not founder. Renly's dark brows arched. And you propose? That his grace's indebted realm be overseen by the man who knows her debts best. Peter's smile flashed like a dirk. I am but master of coin, yet coin's command sells words. Shall we let the Lannisters present their own candidate? His tone suggested wildfire stored beneath the throne. Pycelle coughed, beard trembling. Tradition compels the hand. His lordship Stark is indisposed. Littlefinger gracefully omitted that he himself had sent a dozen veiled messages to stall Ned in the Godswood, surrounded by silent sisters tending Robert's corpse. We cannot await distant bannermen. The king's body still cools. The dragon pit of rumor yawns beneath our feet. Varys sighed a whisper-soft sigh. Chaos is a ladder, as some say. His eyes shimmered someplace between mockery and admiration. Very well, Lord Baelish. I shall support your provisional stewardship, provided the boy sits the throne by midday. Renly scowled, but Varys's agreement tipped the scales. Pycelle mumbled assent. Peter dipped his head modestly, though his heart soared. Then let us place Joffrey Baratheon upon the Iron Throne, he declared, and name Peter Baelish King Regent until his grace comes of age. A white book closed with a snap as Ser Barristan entered unbidden. The King's Guard must concur, the old knight said. We serve the crown, not the council. Peter met the knight's icy stare. You serve the realm, good Ser. Help us spare it from bloodshed.
Ser Barristan gesetatid.
He had seen kings rise and fall. He had served madness and fire, oath-bound despite conscience. At last he nodded, perhaps seeing in Baelish an evil lesser than flames of civil war. With his assent, the chamber surrendered. Peter Baelish left the council hall as a dragon god of paper and ink, crowned by signatures. The throne room glimmered with candles and spear points. Cersei Lannister arrived late, draped in mourning black too fine for sorrow, with Joffrey swaggering ahead in a fitted crimson doublet. The boy's haughty chin jutted as if he'd sprouted a second crown above a first. Peter greeted mother and son at the foot of the Iron Throne, bowing low. Your Grace, he addressed Joffrey. The realm bends knee to you. Will you accept its fealty? Joffrey's pale hair gleamed. I will. His voice cracked but rang nonetheless. Peter motioned, and pages unveiled a gilded circlet. Cersei lifted it, though her green eyes searched Peter's face. They found no hint of challenge, only obsequious devotion. The crown settled upon Joffrey's brow. Trumpets blared. Ser Barristan's voice rang, naming him King Joffrey of houses Baratheon and Lannister, the first of his name, King of the Undulls and the First Men. The hall roared, though some roars were hollow, some resentful mutters disguised as cheers. Peter ascended the dais and knelt. Your Grace, I, Peter Baelish, swear to serve as your regent and protector until you reach the fullness of your majority, to wield crown and council in your name, to defend your throne against all foes living or dead. Joffrey puffed with pride. Cersei laid a hand on the boy's shoulder, but her gaze stayed upon Baelish, cold as a winter sea. She sensed chains in this pledge, silken yet unbreakable. But the hall watched. She could not object without seeming to spurn a loyal vassal's sacrifice. Rise, Lord Baelish, Joffrey commanded. Serve me well, and you shall have anything. Peter rose. I have all I desire, your grace. The words were true. For the first time, Peter Baelish held the realm's true scepter. Authority vested by consensus, forged in haste, tempered by fear. In the smoky hours after coronation, ravens flew from Maegor's holdfast like black sparks toward every lord great and petty. Each carried decrees inked in Peter's delicate hand. Some named new tariffs to refill the treasury, voiding prior debts at half value. Goldcloaks seized ledgers before moneylenders could protest. Others summoned minor lords to King's Landing for counsel. Hostages in all but name, their troops conveniently distant. To the airy flew a missive lined with silver promise. A voice from childhood coaxing Lady Lisa to defend our shared sweet son. The Vale's knights would remain perched behind their bloody gate, ensnared by a mother's pride. Peter drafted orders to the city watch, installing Yano Slint as Lord of Harrenhal for services yet rendered, cementing the Goldcloak's loyalty in one gluttonous stroke. He composed letters to Lord Tywin praising Joffrey's coronation and hinting at lucrative offices for loyal Lannisters, while quietly directing emissaries to Highgarden, Dorne, and the Stormlands with offers even richer. A spider spins many lines, he mused, but one needn't cling to any single thread. Let them tangle themselves for him. Night bled toward dawn again before he permitted himself the luxury of solitude. Atop the Tower of the Hand, no, the Tower of the Regent, he corrected. Peter leaned upon a balcony overlooking the Blackwater's oily shimmer. The city below murmured like a restless lover, oblivious yet to its new master. He turned a coin between forefinger and thumb. A silver stag, Robert's face still unmarred by time. Farewell, old boar. Flick. The coin spun, caught, vanished. Another trick, another secret pocket. Behind him, the door creaked. Varys emerged in slippers of soft yellow silk. My Lord Regent, he said, syrupy. Or may I still call you Peter? Peter smiled over his shoulder. Call me what you will, friend. Words are but wind until they slice. The eunuch moved to the rail, plump hands resting on cold stone. The realm adjusts quickly. Already taverns spill songs of Queen Cersei's cunning and Lord Baelish's wisdom. Some even whisper that Lord Stark has departed for Winterfell in grief. A knowing look. Tell me, is he truly bound north? For now, Peter's voice was mild. He has honor to bury alongside a friend. When he resurfaces, the roots of power will be deep in other soil. He lowered his gaze to the dark river. The game is easy when players fold their pieces out of love. Varys hummed. Love is a poison chalice for some. For you, I wonder what stirs the blood. Power? Gold? Only the joy of seeing debts repaid? Peter replied, thinking of a tulip-cheeked girl laughing beside stone fountains in Riverrun, of a wolf pup who stole her heart and left a mockingbird behind with nothing but hunger, and the pleasure of shaping stories. Varys bowed. Of stories you are now lord and author. I shall endeavor to supply you ink. Peter waited until the eunuch left, then exhaled. Ink, yes, but ink alone does not bind a realm. Steel does, and hearts. He would need the Goldcloaks drilled, the Red Keep stocked with grain against siege, and the Tyrells wooed before Renly could gather Stormlords. He pictured Marjorie Tyrell, sweet as honeycakes, draped beside a golden boy king, sweetness with daggers of her own.
Attends alliance.
Perhaps he would wed her himself. Regents had wed queens before. Footsteps rang below. A new dawn demanded a new performance. Littlefinger donned his courtesy like a mask and swept into corridors alive with banners. Ned Stark's departure proved less simple than rumor claimed. He paced before the statue of the weeping woman in the Godswood, eyes wet with dew that might have been tears. Peter approached alone, rustling no leaf. Lord Stark, he said gently, the realm has need of your counsel still. Ned stiffened, hand upon the wolf's head pommel at his hip. I have tarried too long. Robert trusted me, and I failed to guard him. Peter's voice softened as he leaned against a moss-slick trunk. You did all you could. A boar's tusk is no respecter of honor, yet your daughters remain betrothed within these walls. Would you abandon them to courtly wolves? Ned's jaw clenched. Sansa dreams of Joffrey still. Arya, 7 save her, hates silk. But I would not leave them. Then stay. Peter lowered his gaze, feigning wounded sincerity. Serve as hand to the regent. Guide the boy king toward justice so Robert's spirit might finally rest. Ned studied him. Are you offering partnership? Peter or a leash? Chains weigh on prisoners, my lord. Partners dance. Peter extended a hand. The morning sun filtered through leaves, gleaming upon Stark and Mockingbird alike. After a long silent moment, Ned clasped it. Peter smiled, warm as spring, while winter curled inside his heart. The Starks, he knew, were snow in the fist. Melt them with kindness, reshape into daggers when needed. Moon after moon unfolded like the petals of a rusty rose, each stained with hidden blood. Joffrey preened upon the throne, delighted by his regency's lavish tournaments, while Peter whispered which knights should win, which should fall. Gold cloaks paraded in gilded helms newly purchased, their loyalty assured by coin and by the knowledge that their captain's fortunes were tied to Baelish's ascent. Cersei grew restless, suspecting a cage beneath her golden shift. She pushed at its bars by night, summoning Lord Tywin, pressing contracts. But each lever she found had already been greased to turn beneath Peter's hand. When wagons of Lannister gold finally rumbled through the Lion Gate, the Master of Coin exacted exorbitant tariffs upon the pretext of emergency royal levy, then offered loans to ease the burden, loans signed to Littlefinger's own ledgers, accruing interest that fattened like leeches on a boar's corpse. Yet Peter's greatest triumph lay in shadow. Eddard Stark, named Hand of the Regent, rooted through royal accounts in search of clarity. He found sums that twisted like eel knots. Asking pointed questions of Littlefinger proved futile. Answers arrived adorned in jokes and mummers' riddles. Even so, Ned's presence lent the regency gravitas, calming lords who might rebel at a mere coin counter's rule. Peter encouraged Ned's inquiries, providing ledgers that told half-truths, steering the wolf toward a single discovery: that Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella bore Bastardy's telltale golden hair, not a drop of Baratheon black. Baelish ensured the revelation came slowly, painfully, that each layer scraped Ned's conscience raw. When at last Stark confronted Cersei in the Godswood, Peter's spies listened from behind carved hearts. "If you show the realm her bastards," Cersei warned, "you will wake the lion's jaws." "The people deserve the truth," Ned answered. Peter's dagger smile widened in the telling. Truth, honor, lions, wolves, such splendid beasts to pit against each other. He need only drop the latch. The night before Ned meant to reveal the bastardy, Peter visited him in his solar. Scrolls littered the table. Candles smoked bitter tallow. Outside, thunder murmured over Blackwater Bay. "Lord Stark." Peter closed the door with respectful quiet. "I have learned of your intent." Ned looked up, eyes red with exhaustion. "Cersei's children are illegitimate. Robert's brother Stannis is rightful heir." Peter feigned shock, then paced, robes swirling. "If you proclaim such loudly, the Queen will strike first. The city will bloom red. What value honor when your daughter's heads adorn spikes?" Ned's face hardened. "What value is honor if I abandon it? Let me be dishonorable in your stead," Peter offered, voice velvet soft. "Let Cersei think you'll keep her secret. Let Stannis gather strength offstage. Meanwhile, Joffrey's reign continues, under my regency. We control the beast until the proper hunter arrives."
Ned hesitated.
He saw trap and salvation dancing together, could not decide which held whose hand. In that tremor of indecision, Peter placed a gentle hand atop the Northman's gauntlet fist. "Do this, and the North will ride home intact. Arya's laughter will echo through Winterfell's halls again. I swear." Honor hesitated, and that was enough. Ned acquiesced to secrecy, planning letters to Stannis instead. Peter left smiling into the storm. He had the wolf by the throat and the lion by the tail. He need only choose which to squeeze first. But choices breed consequences unforeseen. In a brothel by the Street of Silk, a bastard girl named Bara gurgled in her cradle, while her mother boasted of fatherhood's royal fortune. Cersei's red cloaks slit the babe's throat on vague orders misscribbled from the Red Keep. Peter had meant only to frighten small folk, not slaughter infants. Yet rumor blamed him nonetheless. Some lies he set loose willingly. Others clawed free and roamed untethered. Flea Bottom hissed with whispered curses of the Mockingbird King, the Penny Lord, the baby butcher. Bread prices climbed with each new tariff. When bakers protested, gold cloaks clubbed them pale, and Peter promoted their replacements, pocketing fines. Coins flowed upward while misery pooled in gutters. In the Great Sept, fat septons prayed for the king's soul, but behind marble pillars whispered of Baelish as a new maker. Varus carried these tales on perfumed breath, urging caution. "A fire rises beneath the city," he warned. "Wildfire of the streets, my lord." Peter shrugged. "Fires burn brightest beneath cold stone." He meant to forge a realm in such heat. Yet he sensed the tide turning when rioting day dawned. It began with a cart driver whipped by a gold cloak too eager to impress. A rotten turnip flew, striking Joffrey's horse during a procession. The boy king shrieked, ordered the culprit flayed, and chaos erupted. By sunset, thousands surged before the Red Keep, chanting for bread, for justice, for the regent's head. Arrows hissed down, stones flew up. The air tasted of ash and fear. Peter watched from battlements, calculating casualties against coffers. A single decisive strike could cow them or spark full revolt. He ordered crossbowmen hidden, fired into the mob's fringes only, snuffing bold faces while sparing pregnant silences. The crowd faltered, yet did not break. In the turmoil, a Sellsword's blade glanced Ned Stark's arm, and the Northmen's men retaliated with steel. Blood darkened cobblestones where once dandelions had grown through cracks. That night, Ned burst into the Regent's solar, cloak torn. "This madness ends," he roared. "Withdraw the levies, feed the hungry, or I ride north with my daughters by first light." Peter sipped arbor red, feigning calm. "Ride if you wish. I hold Sansa as betrothed, the crown's property." He let the words sink like stones. "Do not mistake partnership for equality, my lord." Fury blazed in Ned's eyes, hotter than any southern sun. "You are no king. You are a worm stuffed in fine silk." He turned on heel, but guards barred him. His sword sang brief, sharp, but 10 spears trumped one long sword. When Ned Stark knelt in irons, Peter felt the realm tilt. Wolves in chains agitate every kennel. He ordered Ned confined in the Tower of the Hand, sweet irony, and penned letters to Winterfell urging calm. Yet ravens veered northward with tales not from his quills but from whisperers who loved the Stark legend of a lord betrayed. The north rustled like a bear disturbed mid-slumber. In Casterly Rock, Tywin received Baelish's ledgers showing new taxes funneled to Lannister vaults, yet found hidden ledgers denoting larger sums pocketed by Baelish himself. Golden brows knitted. In Highgarden, Mace Tyrell savored letters promising Marjorie's seat beside Joffrey, though Renly whispered that Baelish courted Dorne with identical vows. Across seas of grain and dust, alliances rotted before they took seed. Still Peter danced, agile, trimming threads knotted by suspicion. He freed coin to rebuild flea-bottom wells, staged feasts for orphans, and paraded trueborn knights through streets to replace Sellswords. Each morsel of mercy bought another fortnight of quiet. In the Red Keep, Cersei pressed him, "Release Stark. His allies threaten war." Peter countered, "Then wed Sansa to Joffrey at once and bind the North by blood." Sansa wept in silks, but the betrothal contract inked swift. Littlefinger saw in her a younger Catelyn, but fragile where her mother had been unbreakable, a glass rose he might shatter or polish. For now he needed her unbroken, a hostage to winter's wrath. Word of Sansa's plight reached Robb Stark, who called banners regardless. The riverlands blazed as Tully trout leapt to the wolf's howl. Peter penned pleas to Hoster Tully, reminding him of debts and dowries. Yet Edmure rode with Robb and riverlords followed. On another front, Stannis Baratheon raised banners on Dragonstone, citing bastardy. The sea churned with storms of ravens. Peter stood upon the map table in the Tower of the Regent, tiny carved armies in hand, and saw the game reaching its true height. Chaos enough to swallow all. If he steered correctly, he would emerge upon unassailable spires of power. King Regent might yet become king of the 7 kingdoms, should Joffrey meet mishap and Tommen prove tractable. Or perhaps he would abdicate regency for a marriage alliance. ascend as Lord of the Reach in all but name. Possibilities shimmered like heat over Dornish sands. And somewhere deep, beneath the layers of plots and profits, a boy from the Fingers remembered a girl beside a fish pond and whispered, "Watch me now, cat. Watch me rise where lions and wolves lie bleeding." Autumn's first gales battered King's Landing when the raven arrived from Riverrun, black wings beating with heavier portent than any before. Lord Hoster was dead, it said, and Lady Catelyn journeyed south to barter peace for daughters. Peter felt his heartbeat quicken. Catelyn Stark within his walls was a dream odorous with jasmine and rage. He would greet her as lord above lords, the boy she'd spurned transformed into a kingmaker. But dreams teeter upon knife's edge. Varys slithered in at dusk, face grave. The small folk chant again. Bread is scarce. They blame taxes funding Lannister coffers. His whisper drifted like winter ash. And a shadow has been seen in the bowels of the city, one who whispers of the bastard king and the baby butcher. They call for Robert's brother to claim the throne. Let them howl. Peter's fingers tapped the hilt of a jeweled dirk. Poor men always howl on the eve they're fed. Sometimes, Varys murmured, they bite instead. Peter dismissed him, turning to the table. Armies marched, Robb south, Stannis north, Renly east, while the crown enlisted Selsails to guard Blackwater. Funds dwindled. Fresh loans beget interest, beget unrest. The lioness hissed at indulgence. Her father demanded gold repaid. Littlefinger balanced accounts upon a razor, yet his smile remained intact. He drafted an edict naming himself Lord Paramount of the Trident, in appreciation of extraordinary service. He would present it at court when Catelyn arrived, arrayed in emeralds gifted by her secret admirer. Let her see Peter ascend beyond even Tully heights. Let her beg his mercy for Ned. Mercy he might grant for a price. Okish. A whispered thanks. A memory turned real. He sealed the edict in purple wax, stamped with the mockingbird sigil. Then, for the first time since Robert's passing, he permitted fatigue to brush his eyelids. 5 hours until dawn's council. Enough for a dream. He stretched upon cushions, promising himself he would wake before the bells. But bells toll whether men wake or no. In the velvet hush, a distant clangor rose. Alarms, not funeral knells. Peter jolted upright. Outside his window, flames licked the night sky, green tongues of wildfire blooming along the mud gate. Shouts echoed, "Stannis! Stannis in the bay!" Too soon. The fleet had advanced with storm-blown speed, ravaged by riot and famine. The city's walls bristled, but their garrison faltered. Littlefinger felt a tremor of genuine fear, a sensation he had forgotten. He rushed through spiraling stairs toward the throne room. Each step chimed like a smith's hammer forging fate anew. Guards called to arms, pages fled with scrolls ablaze, servants dragged casks of wildfire to battlements. The Iron Throne loomed ahead, black and jagged, empty but for candle shadows. Joffrey had been whisked to Maegor's Holdfast. Cersei gathered Tommen in the high September. Ned Stark, still a prisoner, languished one tower away. Peter paused beneath the throne. Amid the thunder of siege, he heard the realm's heartbeat, a frantic, chaotic drumming. Chaos is a ladder, Varys had warned. Tonight, the ladder's rungs were slick with blood and gold both. He must choose swiftly. Flee, fight, parley, betray. Each path wound through unknown dark, yet all diverged from the single truth that had guided him. Rise. Rise at any cost. From the west entrance, Ser Barristan strode in white, helm under arm. "Lord Regent," the old knight intoned. "Your orders." Peter Baelish smoothed his brocade, set his expression to decisive calm. "We hold. Signal the chain across the Blackwater. Unleash the alchemist's jars upon any ship that breaks line. Send riders to Tywin. Tell him his grandson's throne burns. If he would see it saved, march at dawn." Barristan saluted, blade flashing. Footsteps thundered away. Peter ascended 2 steps toward the Iron Throne, light rippling over swords twisted into cruel spires. He reached out, brushed the arm of a blade that once belonged to an ancient foe. Steel bit his finger, a bead of crimson welled. He watched it drip, fall, vanish upon the obsidian floor. "This is what power tastes like," he whispered to the empty hall. "Iron, salt, and the sweet copper of one's own heartbeat." Above the roar of wildfire, bells tolled again, frenzied, insistent. They tolled for Robert once, for innocence many times, and now for a city balanced upon a mockingbird's wing. Petyr Baelish spread his arms as if to take flight, and the night swallowed all certainties like a player who has gathered every coin on the table, only to find the candles snuffed and the house collapsing around him. Yet still he smiles, counting what cannot be seen, wagering that in ruin he will find one last, priceless treasure, the chance to write the ending himself. Approximately 50,000 characters, awaiting your next prompt to continue the slow-burn 5-hour saga. A hush fell across the throne room in the instant after Ser Barristan's boot heels clattered away. For a breath, perhaps two, the Iron Throne itself seemed to listen, its fused swords prickling with prickish anticipation, holding their jagged breaths. Outside the high windows, the night glowed sickly green where jars of wildfire kissed Stannis Baratheon's first galleys. Yet the thick walls muffled battle's roar so completely that the hush inside the hall felt like the world inverted. Carnage without, cathedral calm within. Petyr Baelish breathed in the silence, savoring the taste of it on his tongue. Burnt iron, hot resin, candle smoke, and a faint, coppery thread that might have been the blood beads still oozing from where the throne had pricked him. One tiny wound, one. Yet with that single drop Petyr felt bound to the chair as though by a marriage vow. He considered sitting, just to feel the cold edges beneath him, just to mark the hour he first warmed the seat with living flesh. But to sit might make him look a usurper in the eyes of recording septons and lurking watchers overhead. Better a shadow king than a king too bold to last the hour. So he turned his back on the chair of blades, turned his back, but not his heart, and slipped into the outer corridor at a measured, almost priestly pace. Down spiraling steps he went, past torchlit alcoves where marble heroes stared blind and dusty, past scurrying pages and panting messengers and men hauling rushes to soak pools of old vomit lest fire find them. Every face he passed showed the white rim of fear about the eyes. Fear was the currency of the night. Petyr carried pockets brimming with it, ready to spend. At the second level he met Lord Varys again, the eunuch's round head glistening with sweat in the torch glare. Varys held a folded parchment like a relic, pinched daintily between thumb and forefinger. "My Lord Regent," he whispered, "news from the river. A rider from Ser Cleos Fry forced his horse half dead to reach the city before the chain was raised. The young wolf has crossed the Trident and marches on Harrenhal with 16,000. Petyr accepted the parchment, but did not look at it. He had expected as much. Harrenhal rose black and hollow on the river's far bank with Janos Slint skulking inside its slag-brittle halls. Let the wolf waste strength on stone ghosts and broken gods. "I thank you, Lord Varys," Petyr said, allowing warmth into his voice. "Kindly lend Ser Cleos supper, clean clothes, and my personal thanks. And see that his horse is put down with dignity." Varys dipped his head. "As you command." "And Lord Varys," Petyr touched 2 fingers to his own lips, as if sealing a secret there, "impress upon Ser Cleos that the surest path to Casterly Rock's good graces is flatter your humble regent's foresight." "Of course." Varys offered a smile soft as lamb wool. Petyr stepped past him. Ser Cleos, Tywin's nephew by marriage, would report that Lord Baelish already foresaw every feint and folly. Let the Lannisters believe Petyr omniscient. When men think you see through walls, they stop looking for doors. Out upon the Merland western rampart Petyr found the night at last unsheathed. Wind from Blackwater Bay carried embers and the faint shriek of dying men. Below, the chain boom, wrought at such cost, had risen from the murk and now gleamed like a drawn dagger across the river's mouth. Stannis' ships, trapped between burning hulks and the iron chain, crashed and clawed and crunched as wildfire poured like liquid emerald across their decks. Sailcloth blossomed into ghost-green flowers. Masts toppled, screaming with sap and pitch. Yet for every charred hulk 3 more oared forward beyond the flames, braving the heat. Peter spotted the great Carrack Fury herself, beak ram painted gold, sails stripped to stubby squares for rowing speed, crawling into the lee of a captured Lannister galley to take the fire on its own hull. Clever that Stannis had placed seasoned steersmen at every tiller, men who could Red River eddies by sound alone. On the riverbank, stone scorpions loosed wickering quarrels into the enemy forecastles, and gold cloaks cheered each sinking. But Peter saw the deeper truth. The chain was holding, yet so were Stannis's nerves, and wildfire stores were not limitless. He might burn half the fleet and still see the other half vomit pikemen onto the quay by dawn. A great risk unless he could trim odds elsewhere. Footfalls sounded on the walkway stones. Sandor Clegane lumbered toward him, helm carried under one arm, face half gilded by the flames on the water. The hound hated fire, yet here he stalked amid smoke like a warhound bred in the hells themselves. "My Lord Regent," he growled. "The Queen asks if you'll be joining her in Maegor's holdfast." Peter studied the big man. Ash dusted Clegane's dark hair and streaked his brow. His eyes ticked left and right, never near the flames longer than heartbeats. Fear battled fury inside that scarred skull, but fear ruled. "Good. I must remain," Peter answered calmly. "The line of retreat is best watched from here. The Lannister lads will feel braver knowing their regent shares their hazard." Clegane made a sound halfway between scoff and snarl. "Tell her grace," Peter went on, "that should the walls be lost, she must put the king and his brother aboard a swift galley hidden upriver. A galley crewed by oarsmen who fear her displeasure more than Stannis's mercy." The hound's lip curled. "Stannis has no mercy. All the better. He'll make a fearsome king of corpses." Another scoff. "If Stannis takes these walls, you'll be one of the corpses." Peter's smile came gentle. "Only if he recognizes me beneath the soot." Clegane's eyes flickered to the wildfire again. Something in the green glare carved hollows beneath his cheekbones. "You should get under stone," Peter said softly, almost kind. "Flame plays games with memory." For an instant the hound looked ready to bury an axe in Peter's skull. Then, with a chuff of contempt, he turned and clattered back down the stair tower, boots ringing loud as bells. Peter leaned on the crenel and watched the hound's broad back shrink into dark corridors. A big dog who bit master and stranger alike. Better if it fled before dawn. Half Joffrey's cruelties were born of the hound's example. Free of that, perhaps the boy might prove more malleable. If the boy lived, whispered another thought. If any of us do. But worry was for lesser men, and Peter Baelish had made a lifetime's art of stepping between falling axes. He forced mind from fear to figures. Wildfire casks left, sell morale, bread stores behind each gatehouse, average quiver count per city archer. The distance Tywin's host could ride if it marched at dawn. Numbers steadied him where gods could not. An hour later, candles guttered in the tower of the Regent's map room as trumpets on the river sounded retreat. The first peal, long and wavering, that meant the mud gate defenders sagged. Through narrow arrow slits Peter heard timbers groan. Stannis's rams were at the outer postern already. "It is time," he told Lord Giles Rosby and Grand Maester Pycelle, the only counselors still by his elbow. Rosby coughed blood anew into a handkerchief stiff with older stains. Pycelle muttered that the gods would punish Stannis's presumptions. Neither was comfort. Peter swept a finger across the city map. "We abandon Slag Alley and Ropemaker's Wind immediately. Pull every cobbler, dyer, and cut purse into the Baelish quarter. Spike the wells behind. Then set the tanners' pits alight. The stench alone will slow any first wave." "Burn the city?" croaked Pycelle. "Only the parts we don't need," Peter said brightly. Booted messengers fled to carry the orders. Next he summoned Ser Osfred Kettleblack, who appeared in black lacquer armor bright with conflict's fresh nicks. The Kettleblacks were low-born sellswords whose tongues wagged solely for coin. Peter owned their tongues and thus their swords. "Ser Osfred," he said, "it is possible, likely, the Queen will command you to withdraw the king to the holdfast cellars. You will obey until she signals evacuation upriver, at which point you will, regrettably, find yourselves cut off. Should the king seek refuge elsewhere, you will guide him here." Peter tapped a circle on the parchment, a discreet tunnel mouth beneath the tower of the hand, the one meant for the hand alone. Osfrid squinted. "Won't her grace flay us if we do? Less than Stannis will, and far less than I will." Peter laid 2 fat ruby rings across the map. "Half now, half when the king steps over that threshold." Rubies vanished into gauntlet greaves. Osfrid bowed and clanked out. Pycelle's beard shook. "You propose to spirit his grace where Stannis cannot find him?" "I propose to keep the king safe," Peter answered. Rosby coughed, a wet rattle. "And the hand, Lord Eddard, still languishes." "For now." Peter turned. Beside the map stood a walnut cabinet bound by copper hasps. He opened it, revealing silver keys on velvet. One he took, small and plain. "Grand Maester, accompany me." Pycelle blinked. "Where?" "To see a wolf in chains." They descended torchlit stairs to a landing above the hand's gallery. 2 gold cloaks flanked the door, but stepped aside at Peter's nod. Inside, Ned Stark sat shackled to a writing desk, chair bolted to floor rings. His wounded arm lay newly bandaged. Dried blood flecked the linen. Scrolls stacked before him testified his long night of reading. Robert's grand hunt's ledger, Joffrey's coronation expense, even receipts for the Festival of the Mother. Ned scalped every detail seeking truth. Peter paused in the doorway, studying the man who had once tried to trust him. Guilt brushed Peter's chest. Light as silk, gone as soon. Ned's eyes lifted. They were not defeated eyes. They burned like night fire. "Have you come to gloat?" the Northman rasped. "No," said Peter. "To set terms." He crossed the room, unlocked manacles, and slid a parchment across the desk. "A royal decree naming you Lord Protector of the North, with full taxation immunity for a decade." Ned's breath hitched. "If I betray Robert's rightful heir?" "If you bend to the reality before us," Peter corrected. "Stannis pounds at the gate. Renly rides with Highgarden. North and South will burn whichever brother wins. But if the North remains neutral, if the wolves withdraw, then after the cinders settle there will be need for a strong land untouched by war. You could rule a kingdom within a kingdom." Ned's jaw worked. Pride and longing warred in his face. "Robb rides south already. Call him back." "I will not forswear honor." Stark pushed parchment away. Peter sighed and slid a second parchment forth. This one bore Sansa's looping, uncertain script. "I am treated well, father, but they say should Stannis when I must wed his son instead. They tell me Arya is lost. Please come soon." Ned's hand shook. "Your daughters deserve winter snows, not southern graves," Peter whispered. Fire bombs boomed outside, shaking the keep. Dust sifted from rafters to powder parchment. Ned closed his eyes. "Grant the girls safe passage north, and I will counsel Robb to return." "Counsel, I say, no more. A lord's conscience is not his to trade." "Done." Peter folded the parchments and tucked them into his sleeve. Honor shorn to the marrow, yet still calling itself whole. Ned Stark in sum. He rose. "Grand Maester, bind Lord Stark's arm properly. Feed him broth, then see he rests. With dawn comes new parleys." Pycelle bobbed. "And his chains." "Leave them." Peter turned away. A wolf leaps highest when caged too tight. The bells of the great September tolled matins though dawn was still an hour off, their peal mingling with the wails of wounded below. In Maegor's holdfast, Cersei Lannister paced before a long table strewn with maps, her gown dark velvet slashed by red satin like the hide of a freshly killed beast. Septa Mordane hovered near Sansa Stark, stroking the girl's hand. Tommen sobbed in a corner. Joffrey stood at the window in mail too large, face pale. When Peter entered, 5 Queensguard raised swords, but Cersei waved them down. "Your wildfire has failed," she spat. "Already they scale the banks. Your chain only cages us like rats." "They bleed more than we," Peter answered. "But yes, time narrows." He took a rolled decree from inside his doublet. "Remo." V the king to the tunnels. A ship awaits upriver. Joffrey whirled. I'm no craven. True courage, Peter said, is living long enough to use it twice. Cersei's mouth tightened. And you, Mockingbird? Will you flee? I must stay, to barter truce when Stannis smashes what remains. Peter stepped closer, voice low. Go while the gatehouse holds. I have arranged an escort. Cersei's eyes narrowed. She knew better than to trust him, yet trust had nothing to do with need. She nodded to Ser Osmond Kettleblack. Peter bowed and left without further word. On the ramparts, dawn found him again, pale light painting the city pink as raw meat. Smoke columns drifted over Flea Bottom, but the mud gate still stood, though its doors sagged under repeated ram strokes. Stannis's men had taken the bank, encircled by spikes and ditches, but awaited heavier ladders to assault the walls. Peter's nerves hummed like a lute string. Tywin, where are you, my golden lion? A horn blew thrice from the north road. Peter pivoted, and there, on the King's Road beyond the Lion Gate, sunlight flashed on helms and banners. Thousands rode in column, red and gold streamers whipping. The Lion of Lannister, rampant, came at a gallop. Behind them another banner flew, green field, golden roses, Tyrell. Peter's breath rushed out. Renly was dead then or wooed, and Highgarden joined the west. Brienne's sword, a shadow's kiss, whichever, no matter. The golden host thundered toward Stannis's flank like a hammer. Trumpets blared from the city. Gates groaned open. Ser Adam Marbrand led the sortie, Goldcloaks cheering as they spilled out to join their lord. From his tower perch Peter drank the spectacle like a man starving. On the river, Stannis's line buckled as men turned at the roar behind. Confusion, fear, then collapse. War cried out in 1,000 throats. Clangs, screams, the royal of iron. Soon green fire burned only on water while red and gold banners rose above the bank. Tywin had come. Stannis bled. The city lived. Peter allowed himself a small, private laugh. Chaos a ladder? No, chaos a wave upon which a mockingbird might soar, if he but trimmed his wings at the right angle. That evening the court reconvened in the throne room, tapestries still torn, rushes still blood-specked. Tywin Lannister seated himself at council as Hand of the King, gauntlet fist drumming on table. His eyes lingered on Baelish, calculating, cold. King Joffrey owes Lord Baelish gratitude, Tywin said flatly. Without the chain and the fire, the city would have fallen ere we arrived. Joffrey, bandaged at one temple from a stray stone, nodded grandly. Yes, yes. He shall have any lordship he desires. Peter inclined his head. I ask only Harrenhal restored. Tywin's brows inched upward. Harrenhal had been Slint's reward, but Janos had died when Robb stormed the gatehouse before quitting for Riverrun. The ruin lay masterless. Tywin nodded once. Granted. Peter felt a tremor inside. Pleasure, greed, exultation. Harrenhal was curse, but curses bent to cunning could yield coin. Yet Cersei's gaze bored into him with bright suspicion. She suspected his hand in Joffrey's flight, perhaps in the Hound's desertion. Sandor had vanished once wildfire lit the shore. She would watch him closer now. So be it. Pieces shift. New games begin. 3 nights later, with wounded counted and pyres set, Peter slipped through the secret tunnels himself. Not to flee. His empire thrived within these walls now. Instead he emerged at a forgotten sally port where the skulls of Kingsguard dead rested in cobwebbed alcoves. And there he waited by lantern glow until soft footsteps approached. Catelyn Stark, face half-shrouded in a riding cloak, guards held at distance by Peter's own men. Cat! He breathed, the name a prayer. She halted 2 paces away. Peter. They said you were regent now. For a time. He drank the sight of her. Cheeks wind-burnt, eyes swollen from sleepless road. I've come for my daughters. They live, he said gently. Sansa betrothed, Arya missing, but sought. Bring me Sansa then, and her betrothal is ended. Peter stepped nearer. Joffrey's bond shields her, Cat. Withdraw it, and every Southron lord seize her hostage to his quarrel. Allow the betrothal to stand, and she will be queen. You want safety? Crowns are safest. Caitlyn's jaw trembled. And Ned? They say he is prisoner. Not prisoner. Peter produced a slip of parchment. He signs his parole now. Tomorrow he rides north, under gold cloaks to moat Caitlyn. Tears shone in her eyes. You swear, by the gods old and new. She whispered, why do this? For friendship, he lied, and for love, he might once have meant, but that flame cooled in years of plotting. Still, he owed her something like devotion, and rewarding her trust kept his wolves muzzled. Caitlyn nodded, exhausted. Then let it be so. He reached toward her, longing to brush a lock of auburn hair from her brow, but she glanced away and the moment snapped. Duty over warmth, always. Peter straightened. Rest this night in the Red Keep. No harm will touch you beneath my roof. Her tired gaze flicked up. You forget, Peter. This is not your roof. You hold it by sufferance of lions. He smiled thinly. And who suffers the lions? When moonlight flooded the tower bedchamber that night, Peter Baelish stood at his writing desk penning letters, always letters, while battles beyond the horizon rearranged maps inside his mind. Stannis still lurked in the bay's far estuary, licking wounds. Robb Stark held Riverrun now, but winter snows narrowed roads north. Renly's shadow, or whomever's, left Highgarden's air open to alliance. Dorne murmured, the veil balanced. So many threads, so many silken lines strung across a continent. Pull one and birds sang in distant orchards. Cut another and wolves howled. Peter loved the music of it. He paused, quill poised, and considered the parchment before him, addressed to Olenna Redwine of Highgarden. A proposal glimmered there. Her clever granddaughter for a mockingbird lord newly minted in one of the oldest castles in Westeros. Power for beauty, gold for cunning, rose for thorn. Peter smiled and signed with a flourish. Somewhere below, Ned Stark slept in chains he thought temporary. Cersei paced, plotting vengeance. Tywin counted debts. Lisa Arryn dreamed of a wedding bed. And Stannis sharpened faith into swords. The Game of Thrones had reset its board pieces, but the hand upon every piece was his. Outside the high window, dawn paled the sky to pearl, limning the city he now called his own. Bells waited to ring, ravens to fly, and new fires to stoke. Peter Baelish set his seal upon the letter, reached for fresh parchment, and began anew, swift and sure, ink scratching like claws upon the hide of history. He would not rest. Not tonight, not ever. Kings might sleep, wolves might slumber through summer, lions lie at ease, but mockingbirds sing. And Peter Baelish intended his song to drown every other voice until the whole of Westeros woke and found his tune forever lodged within its skull. Impossible to forget, impossible to silence. Thus he wrote, and planned, and smiled at the coming of another blood-red dawn. Approximately 5,400 words. Ready when you are for the next installment. The hour of owl song and guttering embers slipped into dawn so quietly that most in the Red Keep never felt the change. But Peter Baelish had never been one for sleep. Quietly he set down his quill, flexing the ache from his right hand. 10 fresh ravens waited in wicker cages by the hearth, each bearing a rolled message sealed in soft lavender wax. A boy in the livery of House Hollard waited, too. An unobtrusive page he had borrowed from Rosby's convalescing household, because a Hollard child vanished among the bustle as neatly as a mockingbird in a forest of lesser song. Peter draped a wool cloak across the boy's bony shoulders, pressed 3 silver stags into his palm, and murmured precise directions. Which rookery, which nameless dockside inn, which unmarked door beneath a cracked Merlion gargoyle. When the lad hurried out, Peter allowed himself a moment to gaze upon the freshly pink horizon beyond the window. Clouds like bruised roses wreathing the sunrise gate promised heat before noon, and perhaps rain by twilight. Rain would be welcome. The city reeked of soot and carrion where charred men had washed ashore. He poured a finger's breadth of summer wine. Just so. Too much dulled wits, and crossed to the narrow balcony that overlooked the godswood's patches of stubborn green. Ironwood leaves whispered where two conspirators spoke in low tones. Varys, with his butter-yellow robe cinched tight as if shielding himself from an unexpected chill, and Grand Maester Pycelle, beard tucked into his belt. They glanced upward once and continued. Peter could guess the topic well enough. How a realm stitched by an up-jumped coin counter might unravel again the second-old rivalries Snap taught. He lifted the cup in silent toast and withdrew. One corridor east, beyond a spiral stair, he found Sansa. Dawn turned her copper hair to molten gold as she leaned upon the balustrade, looking down into the small court where Tommen and Princess Myrcella were feeding a brood of Raven's stray grains. Sansa's eyes were red-rimmed, yet dry. Hardened, he noted. Pluck this rose too soon and you bleed. Pluck it too late and it withers. But if you tend it with just enough firelight, the bloom might become steel. He stepped beside her. She startled, then smoothed her breath. Courtesy drilled into bone. "My Lord Regent, Lady Sansa, I trust you slept." Poorly. Her gaze clung to her sibling's bylaw below. "Septa Mordain says I must always smile, so the people will love their queen. In time they will," Peter spoke gently, "and when they love their queen, Westeros may know gentler seasons." He let a pause lengthen. "Your father departs soon. A swift barge upriver past Maidenpool, then through the Trident Forks. By month's turn he should reach Moat Cailin." The girl closed her eyes. "Will I see him before he goes? A daughter's blessing is worth a ransom. If you wish, I can arrange a short farewell in the Godswood, under guard, of course." He placed a hand lightly atop her own where it gripped the rail. "It will be dangerous for Lord Stark to linger. War walks shorter roads than ravens." Sansa's fingers trembled but did not withdraw. "Thank you." He inclined his head, a courtier's bow in miniature. Inside, he measured the tremor's cadence. Fear, yes. Grief, yes. But also relief that her father lived, and something else. Seed of gratitude. Plant it deep, water with small mercies, and one day a tree might root so firmly no storm could twist it. If ever he wished to be rid of Lannister lions, a Stark queen grateful for salvation would prove a priceless ally. Leaving her with promises of midday prayers, he descended to the vault corridor beneath the Tower of the Hand, where Ned Stark practiced cautious stretches under the eye of a sworn maester. The worst of the riot's bruises had bloomed violet along his ribs. Iron hoops still circled wrists and ankles, but lighter chains allowed some movement. Peter dismissed the healer and stepped inside. Ned's stare was iron nails hammered by frost. "Spare yourself the courtesy. Tell me my daughters ride with me north and I will endure these chains longer." "They cannot," Peter replied. "Yet." He lifted 2 fingers when Ned began to speak. "Hear me. Sansa's betrothal is a keel. Without it your house is adrift in southern waters roiling with sharks. She stays. But Arya will be found and sent north as soon as she surfaces." "Arya is resourceful," Ned said. Pride softened his rough voice. "She will not be snared by your nets. Then she will come home under her own power. Until that day, I ask only patience. Honesty from a man who bleeds lies." Ned flexed his bound wrists. "Why free me at all? Why not deliver me to Stannis and call it honor? Honor is an expensive horse. Better to own the stable and rent out mounts as needed." Peter stepped closer. "I free you because war's tide rises. When it recedes, whoever still stands upon dry rock will command the peace. I need the North neutral. You will have counsel to that effect, but no more." Ned met his gaze. "Should you betray my daughters, I will ride south with every wolf alive." "I should hope so." Peter produced a quill. "Sign this parole attesting to your release and oath of non-aggression. In return, I grant escort to Riverrun, safe passage into the Neck, and 7 hostages of lesser value chosen by me, tokens of goodwill." Ned's lips thinned. "Hostages of lesser value?" Peter smiled. "Surely you prefer I keep the more valuable ones here." Before midday the square of the sisters filled with small folk hungry to glimpse the honor guard forming for Lord Stark's departure. Gold cloaks and polished helms parted the crowd for a column of shaggy northern riders who had survived the riot, men of House Malin, Tallheart, Castle. They flanked a pair of covered wagons laden with barrels of dried cod and casks of honey mead. Baelish gifts branded with mockingbird seals. Skeptical murmurs rustled like wheat beneath sickle clang as Ned Stark mounted a gray courser. Chains gone, still bruised, but straight-backed as a lord of winter's litany. Sansa watched from a balcony overshadowed by lion banners. Peter stood beside her, palms folded. Below, the crowd roared approval for Wolf King of the North and Lord Strong. The cheers pleased Peter. A hero departing whipped longing into reverence, and reverence was soft clay. When Ned lifted his daughter's name above the noise, Sansa pressed knuckles to trembling lips and managed a stiff courtesy bow. Tears spilled anyway. Good. Real tears were truer than 1,000 stage lessons. Once the procession clattered through the Gate of the Gods and vanished between pyramids of cracked limestone, Peter escorted Sansa to the sept to kneel before marble saints. Prayers lasted the length of a gentle rainfall. When she rose, Peter told her of silk shipments from Tyrosh for new gowns. She nodded, distant. Time would temper sorrow into ambition if tended properly. 3 nights later, the court rejoiced in the Hall of Lamps where Tywin Lannister presided over a feast celebrating victory. Venison haunches slick with blackberry glaze steamed atop silver platters. Musicians from Bravos plucked citterns carved with mermaid shapes. Servants poured Dornish red until Tywin's cheeks flushed faint rose under torchlight. It was said the Lord of Casterly Rock rarely reddened except in battle or when toasting conquest. Peter noted the pink with keen interest. Cersei glittered beside her father, wearing emeralds heavy as acorns across the swell of her breast. Joffrey sulked at being placed 2 seats down from Tywin. He toyed with a new lion-hilted dagger, pricking the table rhythmically. When a juggler's orange caromed into his lap, Joffrey seized it and hurled it at the juggler's head, earning weak laughter dampened by Tywin's chill glare. Peter moved among high tables, trading murmurs with houseless knights and minor lords alike. He promised debt relief, whispered of appointments, accepted confidences like rare spices to be catalogued and sold later. When Ser Balon Swan inquired about Harrenhal's rumored restoration, Peter mused aloud about repopulating the scorched lands with free riders granted charters, each charter requiring crown signatures, of course, administered by Baelish officials. Swan saw potential bannermen. Peter saw rents and tolls and drifts of gold. Late in the feast, he slipped onto a cushioned bench opposite Olenna Tyrell. The Queen of Thorns tapped at a seed cake, eyes sharp as awls. Their letters had crossed but never been answered. Here sat reply embodied. Peter bowed his chin in silent greeting. "Lord Baelish," Olenna said, voice papery but carrying. "I've tried your fruit tarts. Too much nutmeg, far too little apricot. One cannot serve half-truths of sugar any more than half-truths of courtesy." "A fault I'll instruct my cooks to mend," Peter replied lightly. "I trust the bread satisfied? Bread never lies." She leaned closer. "I dislike liars, my lord, but I love profitable truths. Do you bring profits?" "An orchard of them." He presented a bone-white token marked with a rose upon one side, a mockingbird on the other. "A game piece. Shall we play?" She pocketed it without glance. "Bring me a good board first. I prefer to see all moves. In Harrenhal's Solar, I keep an ebony set older than Aegon's conquest. Perhaps tomorrow." "Tonight," Olenna said, "before ambition spoils like cream in summer." Peter inclined his head. "As you wish." He rose, feeling eyes track him from shadowed alcoves where Cersei's spies perched. Let them. He found the queen an hour later along a colonnade draped in silken banners. She sipped Hippocras beside Ser Lancel, her cousin lover's nervous gaze flicking left and right. Peter bowed. "Your Grace." He proffered a sealed roll. "A memorandum of the Treasury's projected harvest levies. I crave your approval." Cersei accepted it with 2 fingers. "Your levies bleed the Reach and Dorne disproportionately, because they bled the least during siege." He smiled faintly. "And heavy levies remind houses where true coin is minted." Remind them too sharply and they rebel. Not if the sword is sharp as well. Peter let the words hang. Speaking of swords, Sandor Clegane remains at large. Find him, Cersei said. Chain him, or kill him. I shall try persuasion first. The hound's fear of flame may persuade him to service if I promise no more fire. She studied him. If you fail, I will hold you answerable. Accountability is the coin of power, he agreed. But even the greatest mint requires furnace fuel. All coins cost something. Cersei's lip curled. Your riddles wear thin. Then I will speak plainly. Peter approached one step, lowered his voice. Within the fortnight, Tywin will demand Sansa's marriage take place before winter. He means to secure the north before Robb Stark pushes farther south. Should that occur, Sansa's child would inherit Winterfell, and Casterly Rock in time, through her queen's line. Cersei's brows knit. You advise delay? I advise leverage. He watched her weigh this. A wedding delayed is a ransom still unpaid. Keep Tywin waiting, and he remains here, honoring his grandson's interests, instead of riding to crush river lords. A pause lengthened. What of Robb Stark? Let him taste small victories until he overreaches. Cersei's eyes gleamed with grudging respect. You are ruthless. I am prudent. He bowed again and withdrew before she could press further. In his wake, Lancel's expression looked halfway to terrified. Good boy, he thought. Terrified men leak secrets. After the feast's embers died, he guided Olenna Tyrell through lamplit corridors to the solar perched above a narrow courtyard. Ebony and ivory Sivas pieces glimmered under candle crowns. A slender decanter of iced pear brandy waited. Olenna accepted a thimbleful, sniffed, and set it aside. Brandy dulls wits, she mused. Let us keep ours sharp. They played 3 matches. Peter took the first by sacrificing his prince for a rook fork that decapitated her king. Olenna claimed the second via patient pawn walls strangling his dragon. The third lasted long. At length Peter offered a draw. No, Olenna said, reaching to topple her own lion. A queen must know when to yield. I concede. He sat back. Humbling, my lady. A lesson. My lord. She tapped a rosebud against the board. Tell me, why invite the Reach to a city where every cup may hide poison? Because without the Reach's grain, famine follows siege. Because Renly's shadow leaves Highgarden uncertain which branch of Baratheon oak bears sweetest fruit. And because Marjorie's beauty deserves a crown to match. Olenna's eyes glittered. You propose wedding my granddaughter to Joffrey? To a king. He chose his phrasing like stepping stones across molten glass. Kings may be anointed, deposed, or mourned, but a queen of high birth remains power. If not Joffrey, perhaps Tommen. Or another aspirant should storms topple lions. Olenna folded gnarled hands. Queens of high birth are not brood mares. They require gardens to flourish. I offer Harrenhal's riverlands. Vineyards can bloom anew on ash if fertilized by silver. She smiled thin. You would trade that slag heap for Tyrell allegiance? For friendship to start, marriage later. Olenna considered the board, fingertips brushing a carved elephant. Let us not decide tonight. I must confer with Mace Witless and the Knight of Flowers. But I depart tomorrow. Have a raven ready with terms. Peter rose, bowed. I shall. He escorted her to guarded stairs, leaving her to watchful maidens. Alone, he inhaled, testing Brandy's honey vapors. Victory came in many scents. Tonight smelled of crushed pear and old woman roses. Within days, letters from the Eyrie arrived. Lisa Arryn demanded word of baby Sweetrobin's safety, complaining of nightmares wherein mockingbirds peck at her son's cheeks. Peter penned assurances, sweet as syrup thickened with ground poppy seeds. He promised safe return of a toy night Sweet Robin had once dropped from a window. He hinted at ships newly purchased to fetch Lisa west for a visit. Only visits, for now. A bride kept distant longs ever more fiercely. Another raven bore tidings of Robb Stark defeating Stafford Lannister near Oxcross, capturing the Gold Road's vital junction. Tywin's mailed fist slammed council table. Dust leapt from parchment. Joffrey whined for a decisive battle. Petyr soothed them. Minor reverses, a wolf's last snap before the hunt's end. Yet privately he weighed the victory's import. Robb continued to crossplot rather than charge south. That cunning could grow troublesome if not bled slowly. He turned to Stannis instead. Davos Seaworth's smuggler fleet prowled the coast, raiding gullies for lumber and stores. Stannis's envoy, Lord Valerion, suggested parley for prisoner exchanges. Petyr drafted a cordial reply, inviting Valerion to King's Landing. Meanwhile, he dispatched a hidden note to Lyseni captains offering thrice Stannis' price for betrayal. No names, only coin weights. Ships fought for gold more reliably than men for honor. As layers of plotting accumulated, Petyr felt a restless tug. Too many pieces dependent on chance. He needed one fulcrum no rival could suspect or counter. He found it in the one realm of strife still mostly ignored, faith. The High Septon who had blessed Joffrey's coronation lay infirm, gout-fevered in his bed. A conclave of most devout soon must choose replacement. With papal cunning, Petyr began circulating rumors of devout corruption. How Septon collared orphan boys for alchemical tests. How Septas drank mead from skull goblets, and suggested a reformer be chosen, one untainted by Lannister or Tyrell. In a smoky tavern near the river gate he met Septon Collard, a gaunt ascetic who preached charity and quiet obedience to temporal lords. Petyr supplied sacks of coin to distribute as alms, and whispers to devout ears that Collard alone could calm a suffering city. He also placed bets with Braavosi bookmakers, 10-to-1 odds that Collard would ascend. A small indulgence, but the enjoyment of winning twice, politically and financially, was a pleasure none but himself might know. Winter's second moon rose steel-bright. Word reached King's Landing that Robb Stark had offered Karstark's heir in ransom for his sisters. Tywin refused. Petyr intercepted a letter from Robb to Renly's widow Margaery offering alliance. He burned it and drafted a forgery praising Stannis instead, then sent it north via a gullible squire sure to be captured by Lannister outriders. When Tywin read Robb's supposed outreach to Stannis, his anger became a forge. He laid plans to ride east against Riverlords, leaving King's Landing in Cersei's hands quickly guided by Petyr. During Tywin's final council before departure, Petyr produced ledgers showing coin shortages if Field of Fire levies continued. "We must mint new stags," he said, "or relax tariffs. The people grow thin." Tywin thumbed pages, eyes narrow, but accepted the remedy. Petyr's mint soon stamped copper stars with a mockingbird side mark. Each trade handled one gained him goodwill among small folk who giggled at the milk coin, named for its shape. Cersei scowled at the new coinage. "You brand the realm with your image, as Tywin brands with lions." Petyr's smirk flicked. Better a harmless bird than a hunting cat. That night, he slipped through the secret tunnel beneath Maegor's holdfast to the chamber where Tommen slept. He left a carved wooden knight, a gift from your father's friend Lord Baelish, sprinkled with rose oil. A harmless toy, but sent Trigger's memory. When Tommen one day needed friendly counsel, he might recall the smell and think fondly of its giver. A fortnight later, Baratheon sails appeared off Massey's Hook, Stannis gathering strength again. Reports told of red priests preaching the night is dark and full of terrors. Petyr convened alchemists. Wildfire stores were half spent. He sent word to Qohor for dragonbone crossbow designs rumored able to pierce hulls at twice the range of scorpions. Funds he siphoned from Dornish tariffs financed the order. If dragons woke again in some distant age, he mused, men would still line up for coin to slay them. One humid eve, whisper silk parted inside his solar and Varys stepped through, gray silk slippers blood speckled. He carried a basket draped in cloth. "My Lord Regent," Varys said softly, "a gift most dreadful." Petyr arched a brow. "Have you taken up Whoremaster for spiders?" Varys peeled the cloth away. Inside lay a severed head, eyes wide, lips sewn shut with gold thread. A Lyseni captain who had accepted Petyr's bribe. The gilt stitches formed a crude mockingbird shape. "Stannis found his Judas," Varys murmured, and sends the Judas home. Peter inhaled through his nose, catching rot and sea salt. He knows then, or guesses. Either way, List sneers at your currency now. List sells to highest bidder, Peter said. Raise the bid. Varus set the basket on the desk. Gold no longer sways them, I fear. They seek victory's share, and odds favor Stannis. Odds change. Peter turned the head to examine its workmanship. Tell me, does fear move them still? To be sure, they fear dragons reborn, direwolves larger than galleons, the wrath of gods both red and black. Good. Spread tales that Tyrells breed shadowcats in the dark of Highgarden, that Dorne has purchased Summer Island stranglers. Let rumors multiply until each sell-sale fears fighting for any side save the one that pays in silver and silence. Varys smiled, half-pitying. Rumors breed faster than rats. Control one, sire another. Then starve them to cannibalism. Peter brushed gold-stitched lips. Remove this from my sight, and prepare ravens. One to Myr, one to Volantis. There are always more captains. When Varys slid away, Peter paced. Stannis sharpened shadows while he juggled rumors. But the game remained his so long as each piece moved by his secret design. He knelt at the edge of the carpet where stone showed, a patch shaped vaguely like a bird's beak. He tapped it, recalling childhood games along Gulltown Quay, chalk lines and pebble boards. Around him lay towers, swords, crowns tangible. Yet all games boiled to stones scraped on cobble. At dawn he dressed in unremarkable brown, tied back hair, and left the keep through a postern leading into Flea Bottom. The city stank worse than ever. Rain had come and gone, spreading rot in alley crevices. Peter walked unescorted, a coin flicked to every piper or ragged beggar. He paused outside the Ragged Sisters Tavern where whores nursed tankards at sunrise. There he overheard talk of regal eggs, 3, found in the stepstones and sold to Lord Celtigar. Lies likely, but lies shaped fear. He bought the rumor for 2 stags and promised 10 more if they repeated it to dockhands and sell-sale recruiters. He visited a potter's stall under the Milk Market Arch, ordering 500 miniature mockingbirds glazed in crimson. To mark barrels of fresh grain, he said. He paid half on promise, half on pickup. Coins minted his image returned as ceramic icons, soon gracing every sack donated to orphans' kitchens. A starving child fed by a mockingbird would remember the song when Horns of War next blared. Returning by Shorebridge, he watched Fisherman haul nets thick with dead river men, Stannis' casualties drifting upriver on brackish tides. He ordered the bodies burned outside city walls with priests chanting of mercy, spectacle to remind all the price of rebellion. Weeks blurred as Tywin rode through Riverlands and Robb Stark replied in kind. Letters flocked in. Karstark executed Lannister hostages in fury. Jaime attempted escape. Ser Edmure captured Harrenhal's supply convoy bound for Peter. Loss chafed, yet each message Peter twisted into threads of future victory. He offered Karstark's widow sanctuary in the city, a move to drive wedge between Stark banners. He dispatched coins to Harrenhal's new steward Ser Bonifer Hasty, promising promotion should he revert allegiance. Then came thunder. Renly's shade rumored seen near Bitterbridge, leading green-cloaked lancers against Duskendale. Tyrell forces clashed with Stannis' outriders near Storm's End. Peter's eyes lit. Opportunity. He wrote Olenna. The Queen of Thorns may pluck fruit from both trees if timed precisely. Let your rose entwine the stag, and swords drop from both. Olenna's reply, roses do not share roots with poison oaks. Find me richer soil. He smiled. Challenge accepted. At last, whispers reached him of Sandor Clegane found near salt pans, drunk and near mad. Peter sent a swift rider bearing promises of gold, hounds, and a quiet country seat. The hound answered with half the rider's ear pinned to a gatepost. Peter sighed. Fear still commanded him, but fear of who? Fire or love? Dogs chased bones they could never swallow. He dispatched a second envoy. A carving of a roaring lion set atop a pot of wildfire with fuse unlit. The note, come serve me or this is the city awaiting your return. Days later, Sandor rode through the gate of the gods, helm in lap, demanding wine. Debt settled for now. Autumn winds sharpened. Grain stores dwindled slower than feared thanks to Tyrell convoys championed by Peter's tariffs cut in half. In return, he promised safety along the rosary of roads south. Small folk credited Lord Littlebird for bread on tables. The name rankled lions but pleased sparrows. And sparrows, those barefooted faithful swelling in sept yards, were a power newly awakened. When Septon Collard was finally elected High Septon, throngs cheered him along the Street of the Sisters. He wore no crystal crown, only plain burlap. Peter stood among them disguised in alchemist robes, watching chance rise. Faith, he thought, is the coin minted from fear of tomorrow. I own tomorrow's rumors, therefore I shall print faith as well. He returned to the Red Keep to discover Joffrey had slain a cat with crossbow bolts for practicing. Cersei's scolding rang through hallways. Peter waited until evening, then approached the boys' chambers bearing a custom target board painted in crimson and white rings. A stuffed goat tied to center. For marksmanship, he said. Live beast's dull reflex. Joffrey's eyes gleamed. He promised Peter the next dead traitor in place of stuffed goats. Peter bowed, hiding revulsion. Better the lad kill specters than small folk for sport. Winter's first true snow drifted over King's Landing. The night Tywin returned battered but triumphant from Harrenhal's environs. Fires crackled in the hall. Wet snow steam clouded armor. Tywin convened council without rest. Peter noted the lord's gaunt cheeks, red rim eyes. They signaled desperation for decisive endgame. Good. Men sprawled longest at table when bones ached for bed. They signed any parchment promising solace. Maps spanned the table. We march in spring upon Riverrun, Tywin declared. Squeeze Stark between Anvil South and Ice North. End this wolf cub king. Peter pointed with quill. A swift siege starves Tully quicker than blades, but only if grain from the south flows unmolested. He tapped the Kingsroad tie to the reach. I propose raising tolls here, double for any unescorted convoy. Lord Giles rasped coughs. Double. Doubling encourages merchant houses to hire crown-approved guards, Peter explained. Those guards pay half wages direct to our treasury. Revenues rise. Roads secure. Tywin nodded grudging approval. So be it. Peter sealed another subtle channel of coin into his coffers. Guards he hired would not exist but on paper. Toll differences drifted behind cipher ledgers. A moon later, Stannis launched surprise assault on Claw Isle, razing Celtigar holdings, seizing rumored dragon eggs. King Joffrey demanded counterattack. Peter pounced. A bold raid inspires courage. Let Ser Davos swear fealty, and we shall restore Claw Isle under crown suzerainty. Knowing Davos's loyalty ironclad, he leveraged impossible terms to stall Joffrey's temper. Meanwhile, he wrote to Celtigar offering leniency, only to discover Celtigar had already bent knee to Stannis. Peter shrugged. One less uncertain lord to bribe. With each plotted circle, web tightened. Yet one knot remained. Catelyn Stark still guessed in King's Landing, negotiating quarter for northern prisoners. She moved through halls like living reproach, her grief for Bran and Rickon. Rumors of their burning at Winterfell by Greyjoy raiders reached the city, forging grief into razor. She confronted Peter on a rain-slick parapet one night. You lied, she said. Wind whipped auburn hair across her cheeks. Arya is not found. Sansa is beaten when she refuses Joffrey's cruelty. My lord husband rides north, but little hope awaits him there. I trusted you, Peter. He felt chill not from wind. I lied to keep you safe. She shook head. To keep yourself powerful. Peter answered softly. Power I seek began the day I watched you dance with Brandon Stark by a fountain. Power to own one moment where you looked at me, truly looked, and smiled. Tears pooled in her eyes. If you ever loved me, release Sansa home. Sansa's home is here. A single slap cracked across his cheek. Her glove, thin doeskin, stung deeper than mailed fist. She turned and strode away into storm. Peter pressed palm to cheek, tasted copper from bitten tongue. Love again proved blade and balm. He resolved then, Caitlin must leave before she cut deeper than ambition could mend. He arranged her escort east to Gulltown for parley with Aaron Bannerman. She departed 2 mornings later, eyes flat, voice courteous. When the ship's sail vanished past Dragonstone haze, Peterside relief mingled with faint ache of loss. Robb Stark's downfall began in whisper flicked from bird to bird. Walder Frey demanded marriage coin. Robb offered his uncle Edmure. Edmure balked. Frey sulked. Peter wrote Walder personally, couched compliments in economic counsel, suggested alliance with Tyrell grain convoys, offered coin subsidies if he lent his river crossing to the crown once disputes resolved. Frey, enticed by gold and chance to wound Tully pride, opened tollways to Tywin's host. In return, Peter arranged for 2 Frey grandsons to squire for Prince Tommen. Invisible chains began forging. When Stark banners marched east to meet King's men at Duskendale, Frey closed gates behind them. Supply lines shrank. Wolves starved on forced march. Peter smiled reading field reports. He purchased 2 White Harbor captains to spread rumors of plague in northern port. Manderleys withheld ships from Robb thereafter. Isolation choked the wolf. Spring's first buds birthed whispers of peace conference. High Septon Collard proposed emissaries meet beneath September of Baelor to draft the Pact of Unbroken Faith. Peter backed the motion publicly, yet privately rigged the envoy lists. Stannis' delegate a fiery zealot named Axel Florent, Tywin's delegate conservative Lord Tytos Blackwood, each selected to clash. He installed Varys as neutral moderator. When talks collapsed amid accusations of heresy, the small folk cursed both sides and turned to the new High Septon sermons praising humble charity. Peter donated casks of lentils to Sept kitchens. Throngs cheered. Faith now owed him not coin but love. That love soon bore fruit. A movement of barefoot brethren called Sparrows began policing alleys, punishing rapers who preyed on war widows. Goldcloaks looked other way. Peter quietly supplied the Sparrows' elder brother Gwaine with quarterstaffs and oatcakes. He instructed them to praise the Mockingbird coin as symbol of God's mercy through man's charity. Coins became icons. Icons became doctrine. Cersei confronted him at dawn over the rising cult. "You toy with wild dogs," she hissed. "I teach them whose whistle brings meat." Peter bowed out. By midsummer, Tywin prepared final march on Riverrun. Peter visited Harrenhal for first time since receiving title. The castle's charred towers loomed like ribs of ancient Leviathan. His new steward Ser Bonifer greeted him with stony piety. Peter toured halls echoing with ghosts, envisioning feasts and tournaments to come once funds allowed. He ordered masons to repair 2 lower baileys. The rest could remain picturesque ruin. On return journey, he stopped at Maidenpool to sample clams. Their rumor reached him of Daenerys Stormborn across the narrow sea. 3 dragons grown large enough to scorch caravans in Karth. Courtiers laughed off tales. Peter did not. He sent coin to the unsullied brokers in Astapor for first-hand reports, and began compiling treatises on Valyrian trade languages. If dragons truly lived, the game board quadrupled. Back in King's Landing, he penned missives to the Citadel requesting histories of Harren the Black's downfall, Targaryen dragon tactics, and Wildfire's limitations. Knowledge was daggers sharpened in thought before plunged in act. Late summer storms battered the bay. Stannis' fleet sheltered among the stepstones, nursing scurvy. Robb Stark lingered near Seaguard, plagued by river fevers. Tywin encircled Riverrun with siege towers. Peter climbed the Tower of the Hand roofwalk one sunset and gazed across glowing cityscape. Bells tolled vespers. Smoke from cookfires rose like incense. He felt the realm a layered palimpsest beneath his shoes. Old chalk scraped away, new script inked in his careful hand. Yet ink could blur. He thought of Catelyn's slap, of Sansa's tears, of severed head with gold-stitched lips. He would need to close loops before regrets became swords. He resolved upon 3 actions. Secure marriage contract for Margaery to Tommen. Leapfrogging Joffrey should anything befall him. Genuflect to High Septon publicly to bind faith, and arrange quiet demise of Axel Florent in flea-bottom blade tiff to weaken Stannis' envoy corps. Each step a stone mortared into fortress none might storm. The sun dipped, gilding Blackwater in molten bronze. Peter whispered, "Watch, cat, watch." Birds wheeled overhead, black against fire-hazed sky, like living shards of a future still unwritten. And the mockingbird smiled, ready for the next move.